First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fox 12 Now. I just wanted to go to that shot right there. That is at the top of Ski Bowl right now. A lot of snow there. I don't know if it's actually snowing or if that's just fog that's happening, but either way, it looks pretty cool. So I wanted to bring you that here before we started the show. Hello. Welcome. As usual, we are live here every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific. We are live streaming on our website, on our apps, and of course on Facebook and YouTube. So you can drop in your comments on there if you're watching live. And we get to have a lot of great discussions here, as you know, if you watch the show. But right now, we're talking about something that is a collaboration between Oregon State University and the University of Oregon called the Tallwood Design Institute. It is about using timber for projects, for building buildings, and so much more. And you know what? We've got somebody who's much better at describing what it is they do, and that is the Director of Design right now, Judith Shine from University of Oregon. Judith, thank you very much for being here with us today. I really appreciate that, and joining us to talk about everything that you do. And I think, to start off, can you tell everyone who you are and what you do at U of O, and then what the Tallwood Design Institute is?
Sure, and thank you for having a segment on the Tallwood Design Institute. I'm a professor of architecture at the University of Oregon, but as you said, I'm also the Director of Design for the Tallwood Design Institute. We're a collaborative research institute between University of Oregon's College of Design and Oregon State University's Colleges of Forestry and Engineering. And we're focused on both economic development and environmental stewardship through advancing engineered timber products. And we do this through research, testing, outreach, and education. And we're funded by the state legislature to perform this this service for the state. And we also have some federal funding. And we've done about 100 research projects now that have really helped to advance mass timber in Oregon, in the Pacific Northwest, and in the U.S. in general.
Now, you have that term mass timber, which I was reading over some of the program material for the Tallwood Design Institute. Can you explain what mass timber means?
Yeah, I think many people have actually seen various kinds of engineered wood products. And engineered wood products, it's just different from lumber. Basically, engineered wood products are about taking smaller pieces of wood, which could be essentially like things as big as a 2x4 or 2x6, or ships or strands of wood, and fastening together, generally with glues, but also other ways to make bigger, stronger pieces of wood. And some of the ones that we refer to as mass timber now include glue lam, or glued laminated post and beam, which has been around for a really long time. I mean, plywood has been around for, 100 years, and that's a form of engineered timber. But when we talk about mass timber now, largely we're talking about cross-laminated timber and mass plywood panels, very, very large structural panels. Cross-laminated timber panels were really developed in Europe in the mid-90s, though their background goes maybe 100 years back, but really developed in the 90s in Europe, really in Switzerland and Austria. And it's really, cross-laminated timber really takes a series of 2x, usually 2x6s, and cross-laminates them the way you do with plywood. So one layer goes one way and another next layer goes the next way. And we use very large machines generally to press these layers together with glue, so they form very large, strong panels. And we recently started producing structurally certified CLT in the United States. The first place was Oregon, D.R. Johnson in Myrtle, Oregon in 2015. And then Frere's Plywood, which started producing plywood in 1922, developed a new product called mass plywood panels, which, just like it sounds, are massive plywood panels that they developed. And the D.R. Johnson also worked with several faculty at Oregon State University in both wood science and engineering and in civil and construction engineering. So TDI has had a lot to do with the development of the mass timber industry, and we do a lot of work now working directly with industry. We have a consortium of industry members, architects, engineers, construction professionals, manufacturers, who work with us in various ways. They pull some resources to decide which are critical testing projects to get done to get more material applied in buildings. And we also have a competitive process of awarding funding to our faculty in the 3 colleges. And there's a ranking panel made up of industry professionals who actually decide which are the relevant projects. So we work very closely with industry. We do what we call applied research that allows the work that we do to be really applicable and doing exactly what we're talking about, economic development and environmental stewardship right away. Mm-hmm.
So
And
yeah,
I should
working.
add,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah. Sorry, I should add about the environmental part is that mass timber uses small pieces of wood, and they can use small diameter logs. So they really replace the need for large pieces of lumber that would be cut from larger trees and old growth. So, and these small diameter trees can be harvested through selective harvesting, through forest restoration projects. So we are looking at a whole kind of suite of activities from wildfire reduction through forest management practices that do selective harvesting, that produce timber that we can use in manufacturing mass timber products that we then can design to go into buildings of many different types.
You covered a lot of ground right there, and I want to go into a few of those that you talked about, because I think that's really interesting. So going to the, I guess first to the mass timber side, and creating these massive, as you said, big panels, these timber-based wood panels, taking these smaller pieces, putting them all together through various different means. That using that in the construction industry, because you mentioned you work with industry as well to figure out what works. What has the trend been in building as of, over the last, I don't know, decade or so, when it comes to building with timber versus steel and concrete and what we've done before?
Well, it's actually really interesting. There's been really an almost exponential increase in the adoption of mass timber in buildings. An organization called Woodworks, which is an industry organization that does many things, including giving technical advice to firms of all kinds to use mass timber. But they actually track mass timber projects that are both in design and in construction around the US. And the increase has been just enormous in the last few years. I mean, they first started being built in this country really around 2014, 2015. And it's been a huge growth trajectory. It's still a very small percentage of the market compared to steel and concrete, but it's growing rapidly all the time. And the biggest concentration of mass timber buildings is in the Pacific Northwest, in Oregon and Washington, particularly Portland and Seattle. And we are now working actually closely with Washington and Washington State University on a couple of new initiatives. One is this National Science Foundation Regional Innovation Engine. We got an award for a development award to do strategic planning to really grow what's called the mass timber ecosystem in the 2 states. And it makes sense to include Washington because they have forests, they have mass timber panel producers very similar to Oregon. And Washington State also does really very valuable research, making contributions to the field. So we also just recently got designated, like 2 weeks ago, as an EDA tech hub, which again, for growing the mass timber ecosystem, which is also with Washington. And we had previously, about a year ago, the Oregon Mass Timber Coalition had won an award from the Economic Development Administration, their Build Back Better Regional Challenge. It was an effort led by the Port of Portland, and in collaboration with Tallwood, with University of Oregon and Oregon State University, and Business Oregon, the Oregon Department of Forestry, and the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And the port is actually taking their Terminal 2 up in Portland, which was a marine terminal, converting it to a mass timber housing innovation campus. U of O is putting an acoustic lab up there, funded by the EDA grant. And one of the projects I'm working on is doing some mass timber affordable housing prototyping. And we're doing that actually at OSU at Tallwood's Emerson Lab.
And looking at it from that aspect of, there is a housing crisis, in our country. There's a number of different reasons for that and different causes of that. But do you think that something like this, using mass timber for affordable housing, is something that could alleviate some of that, or be able to, a way to, I guess, quickly build more homes?
We certainly hope so. That's the idea, is that mass timber lends itself to prefabrication so that it can be prefabricated and made into either panelized components to be assembled in the field, which is the project we're working on, or fully volumetric units that can also be sent to the field. In general, mass timber can compete on cost with concrete. It's a little bit more challenging to make it compete with lightwood frame, but we think that through prefabrication, that we can actually make it cost competitive. And the big advantage to that, even if it's the same price, is that it's much more resilient. You can make a very tight thermal envelope for it. So it's more thermally resilient, it's more seismically resilient, and it's more fire resistant. And the reason our group got was back in 2021 when Tallwood and we're all talking about, housing replacement after the September 2020 wildfires, and talking about ways to do that. And we were talking to some people from the EDA, and then the EDA Build Back Better Regional Challenge came up, and we worked as a coalition to enter that challenge. It was extremely competitive. We're thrilled that we got funding from it. And the port is developing a mass timber modular housing factory at the port that we hope will, in fact, not only produce a lot of housing itself, but serve as a model for others. Yeah.
And congratulations on the Tech Hub designation and the EDA, awards and everything that came along with that, because that's actually what brought you to my attention, because I thought that was really, really amazing, that this was happening, and then I wanted to learn more. So now you're here. Thank you teaching us all about it. One question, and you touched on this earlier, but I'd like to go into it just one more time. When we talk about sustainability, when it comes to using lumber or timber, any kind of forest products, that's always something that people are concerned with. But I believe you were saying that this is something that is sustainable and utilizes timber in maybe a different way than what people are thinking. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I think there are many different types of forest management, and we hope that the timber that is being used in mass timber panels comes from sustainably managed forests. Now that there's a very broad definition of that, and there's various kinds of levels of certification of what sustainable means. But what we can say about mass timber, again, is that it uses small pieces of wood fastened together to make bigger pieces of wood, so that you don't need to cut down any large diameter trees. And one of the ways that forest management practices are starting to reduce wildfire risk is through selective thinning, so that you take out brush and smaller diameter trees, giving more space and light to the bigger diameter ones, which are also more resistant to fire because they are bigger, and also because their branches and foliage tend to be much higher up. So that if a fire comes through, they're likely to char, but they won't necessarily, completely burn down. So there are advantages to this wildfire reduction and forest health, but also we're trying to create a bigger market for mass timber. So collective harvest actually has. Mm-hmm.
And sorry, my just cut out there just a second, just the very end, but I heard what you were saying. And yeah, I think that's incredible. So it's really accomplishing a couple of things at the same time is what it could potentially be doing.
Yeah, and that's the idea. And that's our Oregon Mass Timber Coalition, which got the EDA grant, has a whole suite of activities, from looking at smart forestry initiatives, which have to do with high-tech mapping of forest resources and attracting younger people to work in the logging industry, and workforce development. And the Oregon Department of Forestry is working with the Willamette National Forest on an environmental evaluation of some areas that they have done selective harvesting in. The DLCD is actually working with communities interested in changing their zoning codes to allow more prefabricated housing, which is actually not allowed in many communities. So there's a whole bunch of things that we're all doing. OSU is building an acoustic, we're building an acoustic lab. OSU is building a fire testing chamber. The only two labs we didn't have were acoustic and fire testing. And also doing the physical testing of a lot of the prototypes. So the whole group of activities is really meant to address the entire supply chain, logging and forestry, all the way up through housing manufacturing.
It's really a pretty all-encompassing, and thank you very much for explaining this too for everyone to understand all of this research that you're doing. I think kind of the final question I would have with this is, this is a lot. You're working on a lot of different projects there at once, but the goal seems to be the same: making this sustainable products that work really well for building, that can accomplish a lot of things at the same time, even just building these. And I think the question I have is for people out there who want to see more of this: how far out do you think we are before something like this could be actually put out into the marketplace in a consistent manner here in the Northwest?
Yeah, I think it's being put out there now. I think that the intent of both this NSF development award to develop the mass timber ecosystem and the EDA Tech Hub, which I said was the EDA Tech Hub, is being led by Oregon State, though Oregon State, U of O, and Washington State University are all working together in all of these. That's the intent, is to grow the existing mass timber ecosystem, to have more steady supply of panels, to really make sure that the supply chain is robust. We're trying to get more American producers of the steel that are used to connect all these structurally. We're trying to educate more people, both at the university level and at the workforce level, to work in kind of high-tech manufacturing, because the manufacturing is all with computer-controlled machines, as well as in the construction industry for mass timber. So the ecosystem is there. More businesses are being created, but we are looking for more investment and R&D and funding for that to really grow the mass timber ecosystem further. Mm-hmm.
Well, your research is definitely fascinating, and really excited to see where this goes with it, and just finding new ways to manage everything that you just talked about and to build something that's sustainable and can really help in so many different aspects is really exciting. And congratulations once again on the award, the designation, everything that you're getting for that, and hopefully more funding is on the way, for what you're doing. And Professor, thank you very much. Oh, one final question for everybody out there who wants to find out more, who wants to really dig into some of the things that you're doing. Can you tell them the best place to go?
Yeah, I think the first place to start, two places. One is the Tall Wood Design Institute website, which has a lot of information on it. And then we also have the Oregon Mass Timber Coalition website, which has a lot of information about the coalition and its projects. So I think those are two good places to start. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Well, Professor, thank you very much for joining us here. Really appreciate you being on Fox 12 Now. And yeah, thanks for talking with us.
Thank you.
All right. And for everybody tuning in, again, this is Fox 12 Now, so thank you for joining. And if you enjoyed that segment, we've got lots more that we have as well at the Fox 12 Oregon YouTube channel, on Facebook, on the apps, the website. So lots of places to go to check those out. You can share the shows from there, and of course you can comment on the social media channels. We have more coming up though, so if you're watching on social media, you'll see this one close, but we're going to be continuing on the website and app for right now. And then around 1:30 p.m., whatever time it is right now, so about 10 minutes or so, we will be joined by Don Forth, who is the purveyor of the Portland Fire and Rescue Historical Site, so chronicling everything that's happened with Portland Fire and Rescue, including they just found some letters from some veterans from World War II writing back to their Portland fighter compatriots, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a new memorial that's being built, so we're going to get all that historical information coming up here soon. So again, social media, you'll see it close out. We'll be back in 10 minutes. If you're watching the website and app, I'm going to keep on going, so just stick around. I'll be back in a minute. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.